Hello, my name is James Craig. I am undeclared major. I'm a sophomore, and I am Lutz Kelber's um, Sociology of Deviance and Social Control. Um, the topic of the book No Place to Hide by Glenn Greenwald is that of Edward Snowden and the release of CIA documents. Um, So in chapter 1, I'm going to give some of the major points of all the chapters. Chapter 1 is called Contact. And this is where Greenwald first meets Snowden. Snowden gives him the first papers, just a taste to see what is actually inside all the documents, to know that he is a legitimate source. We find at this first glance that the government's reach is shocking. We are first introduced to FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which has its own secret court dedicated to approving government surveillance. The specific event that we are introduced to is the court case involving Verizon records being turned over to the U.S. government, to the CIA. This was approved by the FISA court under an interpretation of the Patriot Act. Another main point, and this is important because this was the thing that allowed the government to have massive overreach into the United States records. This was a magnitude of surveillance to the level of 3 billion pieces of communication data, 3 billion over 30 days. This also showed that the NSA lied. When there was a congressional hearing, Keith Alexander lied to Senator Mark Udall about how many Americans are actually surveyed. Udall asked millions, are there millions of people that you survey? And Alexander said no. Another main point of Chapter 1 is to credit Snowden as a respectable legitimate source. Chapter 2, 10 Days in Hong Kong. The U.S. government has the ability to remotely activate all cell phones. This was a introduction point. They stuck their cell phones in the refrigerator before they started the interview. We learn about Snowden's past. We learn that Snowden dropped out of high school. He joined the Army in 2004, and he decided to, after that, work for a federal agency after leaving the Army as a guard. He just worked as a guard. He quickly rose to technical expert for the CIA once they realized his ability with computers, and because the CIA was so in need of technical experts, eventually became a high-level cyber operative. He even became the lead technical specialist in all of Switzerland for the CIA, so he was a very high-level, very skilled member of the CIA technical team. A major point of this chapter 2, is also why Snowden actually leaked the information in the first place. One of the reasons is that he was hoping Obama would curb the surveillance or take away the most intrusive parts of the programs. Obama actually expanded surveillance. He compared leaking CIA documents. He wasn't leaking CIA documents. He was leaking NSA, National Security Agency, versus Central Intelligence Agency. The difference for him, quote unquote, is leaking CIA documents hurts people. Leaking NSA documents hurts abusive systems. So the operatives in CIA, no names were released in this report. He felt the moral obligation, and he felt that he must act upon those beliefs, or else they aren't real. He also has a deep moral of the free internet, which helped him when he grew up express himself and grow. More than anything, though, so those were two reasons. Here's the third one that was most important to him, was that the NSA and the CIA were building a world where all electronic communication could be collected, stored, and analyzed. And then the rest of the chapter is about how the story was published by The Guardian. This is also a main point of this chapter is to credit Snowden, to say he was a very valuable, legitimate source. Chapter 3, called Collect It All. This is where we are introduced to some of the programs, like XKeyscore, like Boundless Informant, like Prism. Information is top secret. This information is designed to be only seen by the Five Eyes, which is an organization including Australia, US, England, New Zealand, Canada. The documents also said no foreign, which means no foreign distribution. Boundless Informant collects, counts, calls, and internet action around the world. It is the largest of all the NSA programs. It collects billions each day. This is the direct example for how Keith Alexander lied to Congress. In 30 days, Boundless Informant counted 97 billion emails collected and 124 billion calls. Wow. Prism is the collection of data from the world's largest internet companies. The NSA works with Google, Yahoo, Facebook, a score of all sorts of companies. There's actually a really cool case forcing Yahoo to work with them. There was a court about it. Anyway, they're like this. The motto from Keith Alexander is "Collect it all." That's the name of the chapter. 20 billion communication events each day are actually processed. How? How are they collected? Via fiber optics, tapping the fiber optics cords, by 2, redirecting messages into NSA storages, which is the most common, and 3, cooperating with other countries, namely the Five Eyes. There are partnerships with over 80 major global corporations, and they lie. Microsoft, which owns Skype, told its users that Skype values its privacy, and it actually directly feeds into the NSA storage system, all the calls. I'm not sure if it's all of them, but a lot of the calls. And the Five Eyes itself does the most invasive data collection. Yes. Chapter 4, the harm of surveillance. The main points about this chapter are to define privacy and argue why it's so important. Privacy is a common desire, a common value, and right of all people, even those who say otherwise. Even those like Facebook owner Mark Zuckerberg, who says, if you're doing something bad and you don't want people to know about it, then you probably shouldn't be doing it in the first place. Meanwhile, he buys, 4 houses around his home. So there's hypocrisy. Hypocrisy isn't the most important thing about this, though. We look at the most famous definition of privacy in the 1928 Supreme Court case Olmstead versus U.S. The federal judge wrote, "The right to be left alone is the most comprehensive of rights, and the right most valued by free people." Glenn Greenwald mentions Jeremy Bentham and his creation of the panopticon as an example of what surveillance does to our actions. It is inherently repressive because it is a denial of privacy, and it operates to severely restrict one's freedom of choice. The intent of surveillance is collective coercion and control, and it has a deep psychological effect. Chapter 5 is about the media attempt to discredit Greenwald and Snowden. They call Snowden a narcissist. They come out with theories about Snowden. Greenwald talks about the two different choices people have. They talk about, one, you can be obedient, and two, you can be dissented. You can dissent in this world. A major difference between the two of them is that in obedience, you have no choice, or you're not choosing, and in dissent, you're choosing through a moral and ideological belief. Also, he talks about the two choices that the government has in the face of whistleblowing. One is to crack down on it, and two is to reform. And the first is much more used, especially by the U.S., having persecuted 7 whistleblowers, many more than we've done in the past 10 years than we have in the past half century. So a major argument in this chapter is also to enforce the declaration that journalists are not terrorists under the, I think, just to talk about deviance a little bit, that deviance can be applied to both sides of this situation, government and whistleblower. And obviously a form of positivist deviance theory can be applied here, social control, in that, Edward Snowden is revealing some of that. Some things I really liked about the book are how gripping it is, how exciting. I feel like I'm transported to a Born Identity, movie at times, which is crazy that that happens in real life. And I have a lot of respect for Greenwald and Snowden for what they did, putting their lives on the line and changing their lives wholly, completely, for this cause. Some things I was left unanswered for me is, where to go from now. I think about what happens, what chances we have in the government to have more whistleblowers like Edward Snowden. I know one just came out, actually. There was one newest whistleblower, so maybe they're still out there, but I'm scared that the government, there won't be any chance for this to happen in the future. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I really appreciate having read this. It's a really important time, and it defines a major part of our history. One of the most explosive pieces of information that we've ever received, and it should be seen as so. A newfound, also, respect for journalism. Cool. Thank you.